there's a lot of emotions happening around just how should I feel right now. It's hard to define. We're here in Seattle where it's been in the news a lot, especially in the activism front and protest front. We're here at the beach on the shores of Seattle. People are enjoying themselves, and I don't think anybody should not be enjoying themselves right now. We're trying to. Don't feel guilty doing that. But what I think you should not do is be indifferent to what's happening around you.
This is what's going on. I only got one eye. These are flashbangs. This is flashbangs that they're pulling for. Hey, bring this shit down. Bring it down.
Joe Ling, we can hear you. I want to make sure your mask is on.
Hey guys, we're in the Capitol Hill neighborhood of Seattle right now. I don't know if you can hear me, but we have police now advancing.
So it's been more than a month since we left Los Angeles, and since that time we haven't been in any major cities. And today I'm going to change that a little bit because I wanted to visit a place that to me feels like it's really central to the developing story of what our collective 2020 is. And depending which way you slice it, I'm either in Seattle or an autonomous protest zone that's called CHOP.
My name is Michael. I've lived in the Seattle area for my whole life. I think Seattle has a lot of progress, especially on tech fronts and startup fronts. So I like all the action happening here, but I also and it's interesting to see how the line of tradition changes and molds and how I'm part of that.
I want to hear about when you went to CHAZ.
So a lot of people had information, disinformation, misinformation, some information, half information about what CHOP was. And so did I. If you don't know what Capitol Hill is, it's a neighborhood in Seattle, very vibrant and eclectic. A lot of times I say when people move to Seattle and they're looking for their first place, they go to Capitol Hill. It's welcoming vibe-wise, like everybody's welcome there. For a decade now, we've had rainbow crosswalks, for instance, just one random little example. But it was a perfect place for something like this to happen. Only a few square blocks was CHAZ or CHOP. It was a few streets right in the middle of Capitol Hill where people would go out for bars and obviously aren't right now. This is where the Capitol Hill occupied zone was,
Capitol
or
Hill,
autonomous zone, or occupied protest. That's right. I wanted to go show people what it was because based on what I was seeing on Reddit, on Twitter, these people were doing movie nights. There's hella snacks. And this sounded like something that would be happening in Seattle on the tailwinds of a big protest energy. I mean, cops. This is not so much in a micro sense about racial inequality, but more recently it's been about police brutality and spills over, and also just authoritarianism, right? So there was a lot of messaging happening during this time. There was, defund the police. There was, Mayor Durkin, our Seattle's mayor, resigned. That message happening. Jenny Durkin, they've wanted this mayor to resign for a long time. She's like besties with the police. It was a bad time for her to have that record. Anyways.
So, as far as I can tell, CHAZ happened because there was a vigil that the East Precinct of the Seattle Police Department in Capitol Hill used tear gas on people against the mayor's order. The mayor of Seattle closed down the East Precinct.
Yeah, it was getting...
Because of that. Because of the tear gas that was used.
No, the mayor told the police to leave because it was unsafe. She deemed it unsafe for the police to be there because they used tear gas.
Got it. Okay.
It wasn't like, hey, you're bad, so you need to go get out of your precinct. It was the people are so pissed at how you used tear gas. I'm remembering the videos right now of how they use tear gas, that it's not safe for you to be there anymore. This is a time in Seattle where activism was very high. There was marches all the way down the streets of Seattle, downtown. They're occupying the city hall, like 300 people inside the city hall. So this is not an interesting time for Mayor Durkin to be letting her police be out there in a place that's quickly being occupied more and more. There's this iconic photo of one night of protests in Capitol Hill before CHAZ happens, where everybody had umbrellas. Everybody in the front lines has umbrellas, and there's a line, all the beautiful colored umbrellas versus the police in Capitol Hill. That was the night that CHAZ happened, or started.
Bring this shit down. So we see him grabbing an umbrella. There's the spray. There's the spray.
You could see the newscasters running away from cops that are just errantly throwing flashbangs and tear gas at everybody.
Neighborhood of Seattle right now. I don't know if you can hear me, but we have police now advancing on protesters.
It's funny because it's indiscriminate almost how blatant these folks don't care about what people think about their authority. That's what the protests are born out of in a micro sense. There's a big macro message, but in a micro sense, and why maybe some non-person of color are getting involved too, because they're realizing that is their rights that are being infringed on. It's, when George Floyd dies, it's not his rights that are infringed on, it's all of our rights. We all have a right to not get killed by the police, or have a man decide if you're gonna live or die on the street. So I think a lot of people were waking up to that message, decided to get out. In total honesty, I think a lot of people want to get out of the house too. So somewhere like Seattle was fertile for action like we had with CHOP, but also all the things that surrounded it. CHOP seems like an HQ for action in Seattle. In a lot of ways it was, but it was happening everywhere, every neighborhood in Seattle. And I can only imagine that being extrapolated to other cities around the world, around the nation too. So
The night that you're talking about with the umbrellas.
that's where it started.
The police left.
Police left that precinct. And they took everything out. There's videos of them destroying everything. I don't know what they were destroying, but they were taking everything out of that precinct. They boarded it up, and this is being reported. I'm not there. They're boarding up the precinct, and they're expecting an arson to happen that night. They think the arson's gonna happen, so everybody's on their pins and needles about, okay, the protesters in Seattle are gonna burn the precinct down, and that's gonna take everything full circle. Never happened. In fact, folks in CHAZ were outside guarding the precinct to make sure nobody with it. So of course
Why did they do that?
To retain the messaging. This is important. From the get-go, when I was at the protest, very peaceful, certain people throwing bottles, I'm talking empty water bottles, and eventually that night turned into looting of certain Seattle businesses. It breaks the hearts of people who have been about this movement for a long time. It really, and we saw it firsthand, it kind of negates everything that happened up to that point, because it commandeers the messaging to be, hey, this is look what's happening in this America. This is what the libs want. You know what I mean? They want to just run free and steal, and unfortunately that really clouded the message of everything else that was great that was happening that day, movement-wise. Great. At the end of May, beginning of June, the messaging is about riots. These protests are riots. That's an important piece to talk about in this video, because main reason I'm coming out there is to show people it's not that way, or try and find where the truth is. Anytime you walk into Capitol Hill, if you're living here or visiting, you're entering you're walking in from a street that you parked on in Capitol Hill to where it's all happening, especially if you're going out for bars. Very similar, but it's an autonomous place. There's no leaders, right? It's a movement. So people were there for different reasons. A lot of people found a place of home in CHAZ. Again, this is only a few square blocks. This is not the entire Capitol Hill, nor is it the entire Seattle. Only 3 or 4 square blocks, I would say. Maybe someone will fact check me on that. Didn't feel big at all. Felt like as big as any Capitol Hill block party would be for some summer event. You walk in and there's a little bit of music playing. There's a lot of people walking around. At this time, they were painting the Black Lives Matter on the ground in Capitol Hill. There's couches set up. This is the most interesting thing. There's a lot of tents set up for people to sign petitions, different organizations coming in for that. There's also these couches set up in a half circle with a whiteboard that's a conversation corner. So there's multiple people having conversations about race and about what's happening in Seattle, and I thought that was amazing. There's no guards. Not in the daytime, at least. There's no guards. There's barricades to the point where the people who created CHAZ, or some of the people who started it, wanted to create some sort of a line in the sand, literally. That's all it was. So there's some videos of people with guns at the entrance. I'm sure that happened, But it wasn't a nefarious thing. It wasn't like only if you look like me. It was more just to make sure agitators didn't get in. And that would end up happening near the end of CHAZ.
Somebody over there, you ain't seen how to use a gun?
People like me, especially early out, wanted to present one side of CHAZ, CHOP, and that this is a peaceful place, that this is a place for the people, by the people, not necessarily sanctioned by the city at all, of course, but like this is a movement that's born out of real emotions and real want from your community. There's also some people saying that this is totally out of bounds, this is making people feel unsafe, and I was at odds with some folks about that on social media. Part of the reason why I was going was to show people like that what it was really like. What I realized soon was that the truth is somewhere, often this is the case, the truth is somewhere in the middle. I was showing this part of CHAZ and the movement that was peaceful, that was about change and wanted to talk about it. And other people were showing sides of things where like they're asking for the 100% abolishment of the police, that things are getting set on fire, businesses are feeling unsafe. The truth is really somewhere in the middle. So even me posting this stuff, I know that to be true.
So CHOP is gone.
It's gone. CHAZ lasted for about a month. Some of the leaders of CHOP and CHAZ met with leaders of the police office to say, and really the closing of CHAZ was the police office saying, we want to take back the precinct. CHAZ also stopped around the time that people were dying in CHAZ.
This has got to be the end of CHOP, in my opinion, this second shooting. I think it's pretty much over after this.
Near the end of CHAZ, agitators started coming in. Not police, but we call them Proud Boys, coming in to CHAZ, and I don't know a better word than agitate. They're just trying to create havoc and walking around, knocking over, people calling people names, no masks, that kind of stuff. To the point where one night, a couple people died, and I think it was fallout from a certain type of agitation like that. Another one might not have been. I don't know the full details of the final young boy that died, why he was there, why he died. But this is a good example of why, the CHAZ was only supposed to be an experiment. I don't know the details fully of all the murders that happened or the deaths that happened in CHAZ, but that they happened at all was because we were in this small bubble of things. I don't think it was the nature of CHAZ that created that problem. I also don't think that the police being in the precinct would have canceled out those murders. They probably would have happened anyways. So I don't know the topic we're talking about. It's probably not about police, yes or no, but that was one of the things that ended CHAZ. It was a timely thing where folks died. We don't really talk about it that much in the media right now, but folks died and the police moved back in.
I feel like there's a big conflict with the message of what CHOP and CHAZ was to have ended with 2 fatal shootings.
It's unfortunate that it happened at all. I don't know the details about why it happened. I don't think it was, let me put it this way, it wasn't that somebody broke the rules in CHAZ and then the council of CHAZ killed these people. It's a good point that you're bringing up. Like, it was unfortunate that it ended that way, but it was also, for everybody involved that is looking from the outside, timely. Like, it had to end. Eventually CHAZ had to end. So I'm not saying I'm glad it happened that way, but it was timely.
Oh, shit. More shots fired. I'm running away.
There's an opportunity to have a discussion which may not be on message for what CHAZ intended to be in terms of an experiment without authoritarianism, right? Or without a system.
I think CHAZ was a lot more than keeping people safe from getting shot. That's an important one. For anybody interested, and I know I'm going to do it after this, we should look into what happened to those murders, the info that we have.
I'll tell you just what I know once again through the news
Good.
media.
Yeah, that's important.
The first shooting, the police were not able to access the scene and were not able to collect evidence.
Okay.
Because they weren't allowed in the zone. the second murder and the third shooting. The police were only able to access the scene after evidence had been tampered with. So, as far as I know, what the news has published is that the Seattle Police Department has no information about who the perpetrator was.
So I think that's interesting. And this is to be completely transparent from somebody who is critical of the police, not against the police. I'm critical of them, just like any law-abiding citizen should be. I'd like to believe that if they were there, the precinct had a police presence, that the case might have been solved or something, but I don't necessarily believe that to be true. I think that if anybody is watching this that has been following Seattle police, you know that they say anything that they want to say. I'm skeptical about the police feeling like they had no opportunity to help, but also I'm also skeptical of the people trying to again distort the message about CHAZ was about murders. You know what I mean? This is coming off the tail of us protesting so many police involved murders of citizens, right? So again, that's kind of, it's kind of the Spider-Man meme of pointing at each other, like who's killing who. And I think it's important to keep the message on, people die in Seattle every day, but it's the ones that we're protesting today are the ones that the police do to us and each other. I'm talking about our folks, our friends. It was born out of this errant, almost warlike policing that was happening. There are videos that we might be able to find of. There's a manifesto of sorts that got published at the outset of CHAZ, not by someone who said that they were leaders or anything, but someone who was there, just recapping a lot of things. And I think that was an important article because it mentioned that CHAZ was always supposed to be a temporary thing. And some of the media, traditional media reports that, this is what Seattle wants. They don't want leadership. They don't want police. And there's certainly a lot of people in Seattle that do want that. But CHAZ was an experiment. CHAZ was a movement to show what's possible. And I think it's fluid to determine and define what that is that they were trying to show that was possible, right? It's possible to show that people can coexist without police. That was one small thing that happened, and it's true. I'm not happy with how it turned out, but I'm happy that it happened. I'm happy that I got to go there and show people that it wasn't domestic terrorism. That was what the news and our president was saying was domestic terrorism. That people were holding up businesses. Businesses were open and happy. At least in the accounts that I've read and went to when I went to CHAZ, some of them felt protected that there's good community folks that cared about them. So again, I know one side, some other people know others. You got to find the middle. But
so what happens next?
That's a loaded in general question, it is a loaded question, but it's a good question to ponder. I might say that what's next? Read the room. This is a time to feel bad. If you are someone who is privileged, me, male, Asian, there's a number of things I'm privileged about, and you're not thinking about those things right now, then you might decide that you should be doing that. Take a look in the mirror, like I said earlier. This is not a good time to feel good about indifference. You should feel something, whether it's you want to get up and do something, you want to read something, learn something. It's that time. One thing I think is important if you're gonna go try and affect change is don't make people feel bad. I just said that you should feel something right now. Try and nurture those feelings. Some people want to learn, some people want to do. I think it's important to show social proof, to say, hey, I'm out here doing this is what it looks like. I'm not saying, f you for not being here with me. I'm not doing the selfie thing. I'm out here. If you can't be here, now you're here with me type of energy. Not everybody has the wherewithal or the interest to go out and protest, especially during a climate like COVID. Not everybody has $100, $20 even to go put towards an organization. Challenge by choice. You need to go do something. Figure out what you're comfortable with that is actually meaningful. And I challenge anybody watching this to start there. Start looking in the mirror Think about what you're comfortable with. And you don't need to go 0 to 100. You don't need to go to lead a rally tomorrow. I would read more, and I would be more curious, more about like what's happening around me, but also how I fit into all of that.